Welcome to Juneau, Alaska's state capital. One of only two, Honolulu being the other one, that can be reached only by air or, as we're going to do, by boat. We usually approach Juneau from the south up Stevens Passage and then enter into Gastineau Channel. And I've made this Google Earth overflight to show that route. As we're coming into the channel, we have Douglas Island off to our left. And also on our left is the harbor, Douglas Harbor, where if you can't get space at the two main harbors in Juneau, this is another option. Coming up on Juneau on the right here, we'll pause for a moment and show this reconstruction of what Juneau might have looked like in 1867 at the time of the Alaska Purchase. And I put together this reconstruction as a rough imitation of some work that was done by Richard Carstensen, who did some research and published a report entitled 1867 to 2017, 150 Years of Change, which includes a lot of historical detail and some great pictures. And so he's definitely worth checking out his report and other works that are available on that website. So why is Juneau a city at all? That's because there's gold in them thar hills. This is an image taken at the mining exhibit at the State Museum. Mining was an important part, maybe even the main part of Juneau's economy for nearly 60 years, and is the primary reason why Juneau became the state capital. It was voted the capital in 1906, at which time the mining industry was going strong. There was regular steamship transportation to Seattle, and so all those factors made that the logical choice. It was in 1880 that Chief Cowie first revealed to prospectors Joe Juneau and Richard Harris the presence of gold in the creek that is now known as Gold Creek, just up from Juneau. The early mining efforts to extract that gold were placer mines, where the gravel from stream deposits were run through sluices and the gold nuggets and flakes, being heavier, were extracted that way. That lasted for maybe 10 or 15 years, and then the miners, after those deposits were mostly depleted, miners turned their attention to the hard rock deposits that were running underneath the mountains on either side of the Gastineau Channel. Those hard rock deposits were first developed in the Alaska Juneau mine, just a few miles up Gold Creek. And this required stamps to crush the ore, and then from there the gold was extracted with chemical means. Because of the very low grade of the ore, it was estimated that something like 10 to 20 tons of ore were required to produce just 1 ounce of gold. These kind of very low grade deposits would probably never have been developed. It wasn't for the fact that the locale here was steep and wet and timber covered and close to the ocean, which provided hydropower, lumber, and transportation, all at very low costs of production. And so that became the main reason why this operation continued on for so long. In the early days, there were two major mining operations. The Treadwell mine on the Douglas Island on the west side of Gastineau Channel. And here's a picture from that mine. One of the things, because of the low grade of the ore, you really needed economies of scale. So you needed a large operation to make extracting the ore profitable. And this shows the stamps that basically crushed and ground the ore into small amounts that allowed us to extract the gold from the crushed ore. They had up to 960 of these stamps operating at the heyday. The tunnels were reaching as far as 2,400 feet under the ground and then out over the ocean, under the ocean. And that actually prompted, or at least was a factor in the ultimate closing of the mine, as one of the tunnels collapsed and the mines flooded from the ocean and the complex closed down. That disaster was in 1917. At which point the AJ mine, which is located on the other side of the Gastineau Channel, then became the most prominent element in the mining industry, and that was the main driver of Juneau's economy for many years. And it was also a stamp mine. Here's a picture of the mill. This is a place that you can go now and tour. You can go into some of the tunnels, see the infrastructure. A lot of it's missing, but there's still plenty left to see. You can mine for garnets and gold in the tailings. A really worthwhile trip to take. For the 1920s and 30s, this was the major part of Juneau's economy and was a big factor in softening the effect of the Great Depression on the citizens of Juneau. Enough about the history, though, as this is some of the other factors as we're coming into Juneau. On the starboard side, just before we cross under the bridge, is a really neat feature called the Whale Project. And this is a life-size bronze sculpture of a breaching humpback whale coming out of an infinity pool and fountain surrounded by a really nice park. So it's a great place to walk over to as you're leaving your boat in the harbors and touring downtown. Speaking of which, it's about a mile from Harris and a mile and a half from Aurora Harbor to reach the main downtown shops, which are located naturally close to the cruise ship docks. And one of the other cool things to see when you're here is taking the Mount Roberts tramway. It leads up to the top of Mount Roberts. Here's a picture that we took from the top of the tramway, and you can see you get a really cool view looking down on the city from there. If you stay in Aurora Harbor, one of the cool things that I thought was the number of houseboats that line the dock that's immediately adjacent to the shoreline. And that's one of the factors that we really enjoyed as we were staying here, is talking with some of the people that live in these nicely painted and unique little homes, and finding out what their lifestyle is like. So thanks for watching. I hope you get a chance to visit Juneau. Very cool place.